Hello everyone, you're all very welcome to our fraud podcast. I hope you're all doing well. I'm John Kennedy, your host. With International Fraud Awareness Week coming up soon, we're going to talk about online fraud and how it affects consumers in Ireland. We'll give you insights on the psychological tactics used by fraudsters to trick you into falling for their scams. And we'll give you the guidance and steps you need to stay safe, which you can share with your friends and family. This podcast will be available for playback on bankofireland.com/securityzone, where we will have all our fraud-related information and supports. Today, my special guests are Nicola Sadlier, Head of Fraud with Bank of Ireland, and Professor Mary Aiken, International Cyber Psychologist. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So, Nicola, I'll start with you. What's the biggest fraud issue impacting customers today?
So, John, we've seen a shift away from text messages, phone calls and emails, and increasingly it's now scams that are originating online. So we do an annual survey. Bank of Ireland conduct an annual Red Sea survey. And as part of that, the respondents told us 4 out of 5 are on social media daily, which exposes them obviously increasingly to the online scams.
And Mary, what's your view on the epidemic of online fraud?
Well, the figures are, to be honest, quite alarming. The Global State of Scams 2024 report found that international scammers had stolen over 1 trillion in a 12-month period. And then the same report, 2025 version, found, and it was a huge survey of 40,000 adults in over 42 markets, so a true global, worldwide survey. And when they did that survey, they found that 57% of those surveyed said that they had encountered a scam in the past year, and 23% had lost money. So I think that's reasonably consistent with Irish figures. And the report also raises concerns about generative AI and the use of Gen AI in terms of generating scripts or videos or even cloning voice, that cybercriminals are using what's called dark AI in this regard. And it just means that people really have to heighten their awareness. And this, at very low cost, can be replicated and target, a very wide group of people. However, the replication of AI-generated content, in fact, leaves a trace that businesses, and say Bank of Ireland, can use to actually try to detect this fraudulent content.
And Nicola, what are the main scams that customers should be aware of?
So I guess particularly with Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Christmas period coming upon us, we're going to focus on purchase scams and investment scams. So to start with purchase scams, it would be the likes of your fashion retailers or particularly ticket sales. We saw a lot in the summertime. There was really popular gigs like Oasis where through high demand, customers were actively searching to try and get and secure that ticket. We've seen examples where customers through social media, through fake adverts have actually been caught out. And that starts through search engine. There can be fake websites there, and also through ads popping up in customers' social media streams, and where customers reach out then in direct message or can be brought to a fake website. They then obviously conduct a transaction or may agree on a price. We had numerous examples during the summer where customers had upfront paid €100 or so, and immediately once the payment is made, the seller cuts all contact. And unfortunately, then obviously we're on the back foot and we need to recover and try and recover those funds to the customer. So it can be quite common, and I guess really, I suppose just to be aware that there is those fake websites. They use the logos, and unfortunately, it is catching people out.
Very good. And Mary, what kind of psychological tricks do fraudsters use to trick people into buying or clicking?
Well, I'm a cyber behavioral profiler. I'm a behavioral scientist, and unfortunately, there are people with my sort of skill set that are working on the dark side, that work with criminal enterprise. And what they're doing is, these type of fraudsters are basically professional manipulators. And they pair psychological social engineering with online tools. And this becomes a very effective attack vector, because cyber fraud or online fraud, it's not just about a hack against a machine. It's a hack of the human mind, from the point of view that criminals actually target psychological vulnerabilities. So in our cognitive processes, you have judgment and heuristics and decision-making, the sort of rule of thumbs that we use to deploy automatically, like, is it hot outside? Will I put my coat on? These sort of judgments that you don't have to think a lot about, just immediate decision-making. And they're the psychological triggers that are pressed. So, for example, you have the urgency or scarcity heuristic. And that's where you'll see only 2 left at this price, or last one. And people feel, well, if I don't click and buy now, I'm going to lose out on this opportunity. And then you have the authority heuristic. And that means that if it looks official, if it looks like it came from your bank manager, if it looks like it came from social services or from the, revenue, if the logos look real, then you are inclined to comply with something that looks like it's an authority entity. Then you've got curiosity and novelty effect, where it's a very attractive clickbait type proposal. And we see a lot of this on social media in terms of being the engine that is driving and circulating this content, which in itself is a problem. And then you have cognitive overload. And that's really whereby whatever platform you're engaging with or, offer you're engaging with offers you so many complex options. Click here, sign here, 2 months, 3 free, that you get totally confused and just click, look, I just want to purchase, enough information already.
And Nicola, are there other scams that people should be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. The other scam type we want to talk about was investment scams. And Mary touched a little bit around the celebrity endorsement. So we particularly see that where celebrities, their identity is cloned and they are then endorsing fake financial products. So certainly that's definitely a concern area for us. Once a customer clicks through these links, there is that legitimacy. There is that, essentially the customer's bought in. That we had a recent one with David McWilliams, and a customer clicked through, shared their initial information, and then very quickly got a call from, it was a fake financial advisor, but essentially it was a fraudster who manipulated them, talked them through their deal, and initially encouraged them to make a card payment of €250. Within a week later, they were called to say that, their investment had doubled and they needed to invest more. And we're actually down in a local branch trying to make initiating a payment of $16,000. Now, our fraud team intervened and we had subsequent calls with them to talk through what that payment related to and where the customer initially come across that investment opportunity. And look, once we probed a little bit further and understood it was linked to where they'd searched at the level of research, we were in a strong position there and we stopped the payment. But that's what it looks like. And particularly it is those vectors where the endorsement in particular is drawing customers in, does give a sense of legitimacy, which is unfortunately duping our customers. The more we can do to try and highlight the prevalence of this and really to ensure customers are doing appropriate research before they do try and undertake any of these types of investments.
And Mary, how do fraudsters get people to trust them?
Well, you've a whole sort of commercial enterprise in the real world and on traditional media of celebrity endorsement or expert endorsement of something. It's a commercial sponsorship operation. And effectively, so when this manifests in cyber context, people have a propensity to trust because that celebrity or expert might be considered an authority in terms of the product they're offering, whether it's makeup and some very glamorous RTE star and whether it's financial advice, as you said. So there is that propensity to trust. And as well, you have an attack vector of social proof of, fake reviews of everybody likes this and this product is great. So people can look at that and go, that helps to sort of build trust. And then you've got sort of liking and familiarity, that if you're a fan of this person who appears to be offering this product, then you get sort of what's called in psychology a halo effect. So if Mike Williams is a brilliant financial expert, the halo effect is to, then he's also brilliant at offering this and at offering that. So, you're trying to counter those, powerful sort of perceptions. And the point is that it's delivered in a very plausible way. So first of all, you can have deep fakes, which actually are a very sophisticated attack vector. It might actually be the person speaking, and everybody has seen the Tom Cruise deep fakes, and they're extremely authentic. On top of that, you have like stitched and edited clips. So you might have Jennifer Aniston talking about a particular product, and it's a real clip, or talking about skincare, and then the offer appears parallel, beside it. So those two things are stitched together. Then you've got fake quotes, fake interviews, fake screenshots, all being added into the mix. So, I mean, recently in terms of romance fraud, there were 2 cases where somebody believed that Jennifer Aniston was their girlfriend and actually had sent a lot of money. And another one where somebody believed that Brad Pitt had fallen in love with them and they sent money. So the ability to fool people in cyber contexts using digital and synthetic media, that is quite high. And the one red flag that you can really watch out for is if this offer comes in a very specific channel. Like you're on social media, you click, you sort of go down a rabbit hole of a particular offering. If somebody was really offering something in this way, then it would be on their website. It would be on more general channels. It would be on traditional media.
And why is it that people fall for these scams, Mary?
I think is that when it comes to our senses, we're working with a very old piece of technology that's about 1 million years in development, the human brain. And our brains have evolved over, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years to establish trust in a real world context. And how do we do that? We use visual perception, auditory perception, haptic, touch, shaking somebody's hand. Do they shake hands? Is it a firm grip? How does their skin feel? How do they smell? We're putting all of those things together and then deciding from that, do I trust this person or not? Say if you meet a mortgage broker, how do you feel about them after the first face-to-face meeting? Do you feel like you can trust them? When we go online is a very lean medium for our senses. So we can't use those senses in the same way. In addition to that, online has become a very complex medium with Gen AI, say fake and synthetic content. Think of it like having ChatGPT with its power and force pointed at you, but trying to scam you instead of trying to help you. That's a very, very powerful entity. So what we are moving towards, so all of these things in terms of all of our senses help to establish trust in a real world context. Unfortunately, online, we have to learn to be a lot more skeptical. If it looks like a great offer, there's no such thing as a free lunch, we have to sort of look at these offers and think, really, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And it gets into an area that I describe as the trust paradox. And the trust paradox is moving towards a premise of zero trust, always verify. Especially, say, for investment scams, you have to verify the integrity of the offer. And the paradox is that zero trust, always verify, paradoxically helps to build trust in cyber contexts.
And Nicola, would you see evidence of this kind of scams happening in Ireland?
Yes, absolutely. And we have seen an increase of these types of scams, particularly over the last 18 months or so. And exactly as Mary has described, increasingly customers are, they're failing to identify the fake ads and are getting caught at it. our survey results also, Mary touched on it also, but just that there does seem to be overconfidence. That 71% of our respondents felt that they could identify these fake ads on social media, but obviously we still have these increasing fraud cases.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that overconfidence effect. And actually, in the global report on cyber scams, they found that a very high percentage of those people who'd been scammed actually had university degrees. So a population that you might think might be more digitally literate were falling for scams. And what's really interesting is that we see two groups that can be primary targets in terms of online scams. One is the 18 to 25-year-olds, that generation that are extremely tech literate and have incredible skills. But unfortunately, they'll hop from website to website and, to try to get $10 off a pair of sneakers. They're just, they're not exactly discerning when it comes to, not all, but a lot are not discerning in terms of where their data ends up, in terms of their credit card details or their phone numbers or address ending up on these sites. And that can be a group that's being exploited because they can be careless with their data in terms of strict cybersecurity protocols. And then you have seniors who are also can be victims of various cyber fraud attempts, but they're very careful with their data. And they have a very well established and grounded construct of privacy, but they may not have the digital literacy skills of the younger generation. So what you can see demographically in two different age groups, attack and success, but for very different reasons. And that's really the challenge for us. Additionally, what we're seeing is a convergence, and I work frontline with Interpol and with Europol in an advisory capacity, and we're getting reports of crossover between different types of scams. So people who've been the target of a romance scam, then falling victim to an investment scam, and then falling victim to an investment fund recovery scam. So this sequential. And the thinking behind that at a law enforcement level is that these organized crime groups are actually sharing data of people, prototypical victims. So the warning there is, if you have been the victim of one type of scam, be very, very careful, because your data might now be in the hands of the wrong people, and therefore you might be vulnerable to attack again. And what we see is people who've lost money are at a higher risk of falling victim to a second scam, because they're maybe trying to recover the money that they had set aside for their retirement, and now they desperately need to try another investment opportunity to recover those funds. And that's really, really tragic.
Yep. And John, we've had cases similar to that. So like that a customer may go online through a search engine inquiry, look for comparison investment opportunities, again, leave their information, their name and mobile details, and then again receive that call, and they are at fraudster financial advisor, and they step them through, can even be local language, native, familiar accent, and can talk through the investment opportunities, and very quickly, maybe even starting small values, but customers are manipulated into sending money, and where they then have uncovered maybe a year in that their investment, it actually all is fake, and we would get on to recover those funds, contact beneficiary banks, and do everything we can. Our team are actually 24/7, and new fraud colleagues who are answering that phone 24/7 to try and recover funds. But often we find that those same customers are then retargeted, as Mary said. So again, we step up our support to make sure that there's follow-on case management with customers, and that we're very clear on the additional safeguards they need to put in place around their social media presence and cancelling contact and blocking phone numbers. That's all of our case management support that we provide. But certainly it is happening in Ireland.
And sticking with you, Nicola, what can people do to protect themselves better?
Yeah, now look, I hope we don't have everyone terrified, but certainly it is to do that research. It is to look on comparison websites. It is to go to trusted websites. Don't be rediverted or click on links which bring you to alternative websites. Again, they can be spun up. They are copies of original websites. So just to be heightened awareness around that. And particularly if it's a larger purchase, I would certainly say, try and see it in person. And if it's anything like an investment, certainly we'd recommend that you'd be talking with an independent financial advisor. Our own app has spend alerts, so I definitely say switch them on, make sure you're keeping on track of your credit, debit and payments. And actually from the 9th of October with SEPA Instant, it's a new regulation come in, but there's a new verification of payee check. So where you're now making a payment to someone, you're going to get the payee name of that account played back to you. So again, make that validation, make sure you're happy with who you are intending to send that money to. And take a bit of time. If it isn't exactly what you expected, take a bit of time and don't rush. And obviously, again, walk into a branch or call us if you're suspicious at all. They're really the top tips. Not to completely put people off online shopping at all or in any way. It is part of what we need to do. And it's how we all shop and spend our time. But just to be aware, to have that vigilance. And I think it is that stalling, taking a stop, think, check approach and validating before you do proceed.
And Mary, do you ever think we'll ever be free of the fraudsters, or will there always be coming up with new tricks to catch us out?
Well, over time, we've never been free of fraudsters. I mean, fraud is as old as humanity. Who've always had people trying to trick or fool people and part them with their money or their assets in some way. I mean, back in the 1920s in the US, you had a thing called the sucker lists. Not a very complimentary term, but it was very valuable lists of people. And Ponzi, of the famous Ponzi scheme, was one who had a list. And it was people who were likely to fall for a scam. And these were passed among these real world criminals. And we're seeing something similar happening today. But now it's like databases and the Europol recent IOCTA report, which is steal, deal and repeat, points to the importance of protecting your data, because that's the attack vector in terms of, compromise. So that was in the 20s. In the 60s, you had the door-to-door salesman selling goods that might have been, counterfeit or not what they seemed. In the 80s, you had landline calls saying, oh, you've won the lotto, and people getting very excited. In the 2000s, I think we all remember, or at least some of us remember, the Royal Prince emails, Prince in some far-flung...
You've won the lotto, yeah.
Has
or an inheritance.
Has $1 million, and, all you've got to do is give your bank account and help them to access it. So, unfortunately, fraud is part of, the fabric of how society functions. And therefore, it's not new. It's just more sophisticated. And while online can create vulnerability, it can also have protective merit in terms of you being, very careful in term of what you're purchasing, what you're investing in, who you're engaging with. So, as Nicola said, it starts with your own personal concept around your digital exhaust. What trace evidence are you leaving out there on social media that makes it easy for somebody to create a profile of you and then use that as an attack vector? That's the first thing. Secondly, businesses like Bank of Ireland are doing a lot. All the things Nicola listed there in terms of supporting their customers to actually be able to engage meaningfully online in this sort of, the rapid digitalization of everyday of life means that we're all using online services a lot, predominantly, in fact. So business can help in that regard. And thirdly, you have government and regulation and best practice. That moves a little slower than the pace and evolution of cyber fraud, but hopefully it can pick up speed as these we see an exponential increase in these forms of attacks. And therefore, at an individual level, at a business level, and at a societal or governmental level, what you have is a whole of society approach to tackling cyber fraud. And therein lies success. I believe so anyway.
Nicola, it looks to me like the tech giants could be doing more to solve this problem. What would you like to see change?
So actually, Bank of Ireland have actually proposed a number of policy changes to address what we're seeing in relation to the fake ads. Really what we're describing is that there should be a verification process. So any financial services product advertising should be vetted, should be verified with the local authority. And that's not happening. So at the moment, customers are falling victim because the advertising is misleading and it is sponsored and it is the top search result for our customers, but it hasn't actually been verified on whether they're actually authorised to sell those financial services or products. So the examples I gave around the investment products like cryptocurrency, bonds, none of these have actually been verified with a local authority. And that's why customers are finding them and are then falling victim to these scams. So we've made these policy recommendations and they are under discussion under the PSD, with the EU Commission at the moment, under the payment service regulations, which are coming. And we absolutely need some legislative change to support us in this space. We've also, the current government programme for government are also planning and assessing the introduction of an SMS scam filter that is in operation in other countries, which has been proven quite effective. Again, looking at where SMS text messages are, I suppose, bulk sent across to customers to try and deter and stop that activity. There has been real improvements actually on the SMS side, particularly with the Sender ID registry in Ireland, which is really positive. I think most Irish people now will see those foreign calls coming in and no longer answer them. So there has been real progress there on the phone side, but there's still absolutely more to do. And Mary mentioned Bank of Ireland's investment. We're certainly heavily invested. We announced 50 million investment in both our prevention activities and our wider team in 2024, and 15 million of that is actually to new investment. And, in conjunction with hopefully the regulation changes, and obviously our efforts, we also need other companies to come forward and also to support in this ecosystem to protect our consumers.
And I think what's really important when you mentioned like online ads and the need to regulate there is people have trust in real world advertising. So if you see a billboard poster, you're going to think, well, there's some standard there. If you see a TV commercial, you're going to believe that it's passed through some sort of level of scrutiny, but that doesn't happen online. So I think that, when the campaign says not all social is social, not all advertising is what it seems. And I think that's very important for people to really think about the difference between real world traditional advertising and what they're encountering online.
Nicola and Mary, thank you very much for your time and your expert insights today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Nicola Sadlier, Head of Fraud with Bank of Ireland, and Professor Mary Aiken, International Cyber Psychologist, for your insights and guidance on what is the biggest source of fraud scams for people of all ages. We hope that our viewers have picked up some actionable advice on how to stay safe online and when using social media. You can find more fraud prevention advice and information by visiting bankofireland.com/security zone. If you have been a victim of fraud, you should immediately contact the Bank of Ireland 24/7 fraud helpline on free phone 1800 946 764, or you can also visit your local Garda station to report the incident. If you have been impacted by any of this content, you can seek support from Crime Victims 24/7 helpline on free phone 116 006. And remember, stop, think, check, and together we won't let the fraudsters win. Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.